We wanted to put this short video together just to show the size and potential of Margaux Resources Jackpot property. It's a really large property, but until you get out on site, you just don't get a good idea of how big it is. So our claims extend for about 7 kilometers from north to south and about 1 kilometer from east to west. We're about 17 kilometers north of our flagship Jersey property, and we're sitting in the same geological setting. So this is a shot of the regional geology map. We're in what's called the mine belt, and this is a belt of rocks that hosts all the major lead zinc mines in the region. So the key units are this blue unit, which includes the Reeves limestone, and that hosts all the lead zinc mineralization in the area. And then this pinky red unit, and those are the intrusions that bring the gold into the area. You can see this large fault that bounds the limestone unit on the east. So one of the concepts we're exploring is that fault system actually acted as a plumbing source to bring the lead zinc fluids in, and so we want to be close to it. And you can see that the Jackpot property is sitting right up next against that fault. So is the Jersey property, and then so are a bunch of others like our Aspen property, also the Reeves McDonald and the HB mine. Porcupine Creek runs through the property from east to west, and it really splits the project into 2 parts. So most of what we know is in areas of higher elevation, either south of the creek or north of the creek, and that's where most of the outcrop is exposed. So there's not nearly as much outcrop down in the valley, and that's not to say there isn't potential there, we just don't know as much about those areas. So in the southern part of the property, there's several different zones of mineralization that we know of. There hasn't been any previous mining here, but there has been intermittent exploration work since the late 1940s. And as recently as 2007. We've got most of that historic data, and one of the things that we've done this spring is to digitize it all. So we have a good digital record of all the historic sampling, all the historic drilling, and we're putting that information into a GIS system, and that just really helps us with planning our program, where have things been done, so that we're efficient in our work. We're not going to repeat what people have already done. We can build on it rather than repeat it. The other thing that we're doing is building a 3D model, a computerized 3D model using that historic information. And that's just a really powerful tool, and it's one that the old-timers didn't have available to them. So it just really helps us visualize the system and identify prospective areas that we might test. So this is our first season working on the Jackpot property. We've got crews out on the ground right now. We're validating some of that historic work. We're getting ready for a drill program later in the season. The majority of the past work on the property is at a zone that's called the Jackpot East, and that's an area that we know the most about. Now, as I said, there hasn't been any mining here, but there are 2 historic underground adits that were driven for exploration purposes. Those adits are caved now and they're inaccessible. We're looking into potentially rehabilitating the upper level so that we've got access to sample the mineralization and to drill it from underground. In total, between underground and surface drilling, there's about 150 drill holes into the Jackpot East zone. We can't use that information for a resource estimate till we've done considerable drilling of our own to verify it. We can use it to help us understand the geometry of it. And we've modeled the zone using that drilling, and we can see that the mineralization is a tightly folded zone and that the lead zinc gets concentrated up in the nose of the fold. So it averages right around 5.5% combined lead zinc. And incidentally, that's the same grade that was historically mined from our Jersey property. So there's good continuity to mineralization at Jackpot East over a strike length of about 160 meters. The total strike extent known from drilling of about 600 meters. And then the zone remains open on strike beyond that. There's also been zinc intersected up in the hanging wall of the main Jackpot East zone, both in drilling and in the underground drift. And so there is potential to add tons on that. The most recent work here was 2007. There were 5 holes drilled by a previous operator. They got some really good results, but they did very selective sampling in their drill core. So we've recovered that drill core, and we've just finished resampling it all, and that's going to give us some good new information at very low cost. So in the northern part of the property is a target that we call the Big Zinc, and this is one of the blue sky parts of the property. There's a big fault zone that you can follow for 5 or 6 kilometers here. It's part of that same fault that we talked about earlier, that all the lead zinc properties are located next to. But in this area, there's about a 1 kilometer section of the fault that contains really large pods of high-grade zinc mineralization. And those pods look like they've been ripped off from their parent source and smeared out along the fault. So the grades are fantastic, like in one surface trench, 16% zinc over 7 meters. But the size of the individual pods is limited. So what we want to do is to find where they're coming from, and we think that could be a sizable body of mineralization. East of the fault, there's a boulder train of high-grade mineralized zinc boulders that extends down the slope of the mountain over an area of about 600 by 300 meters. And we've done some sampling of those boulders and have grades of over 50% zinc from them. So we're working on the geological model that these boulders are coming from the same parent source as the pods of mineralization that are displaced along the fault zone. Now I want to be clear that the boulders are oxidized, they're heavily oxidized, and that's because they've been affected by surface weathering. And that also has the effect of enhancing the zinc grade, so we would not expect grades that high from the sulfide parent body. But from the size of the boulder train, the good zinc grades, the amount of mineralization we see along the fault, this all suggests that this could be a really large target. So there's almost no historic drilling in this part of the property. There were a couple of holes done in 2007 that give us some pretty good geological information to start with. Those holes did intersect some zinc sulfide mineralization with okay grades. One hole had a narrow zone of about 7% zinc, and another one had an interval of about 5.5% zinc. So we could be close to the source of what we're looking for. We're going to be drilling this target in 2017. I don't necessarily expect that we'll hit the mineralization on our first hole, but that's okay because the upside potential here is really very great. We'll basically be exploring by drill bit, and we're building the geological picture and then using that information to keep vectoring us towards the big body of mineralization that we hope is down there. One of the really intriguing things about the Jackpot property is the gold potential. No one has really looked at this, and most of the historic work doesn't even include gold analyses, but the setting is just like our Jersey property to the south, and we know that that's a good environment for gold. Just west of Jackpot, there's a historic mine that produced limestone as smelter flux, but they actually averaged about 0.5 gram to the ton of gold from the limestone. So there may be potential for a low-grade bulk tonnage gold deposit. Now, in the northern part of the property, up near the Big Zinc, there are widespread vuggy quartz veinlets cutting limestone that are indicative of the type of low temperature fluids you'd expect with an epithermal or a Carlin type gold system. And we've got evidence of widespread silicification within the limestone. So the potential for gold mineralization is definitely something we're keeping our eyes open for as we explore this property.